Yes.
All right,
That's
very
great.
good. Thank you all for being here today. My name is David Fiora, and I am the Electronic Resources Librarian here at St. Mary's College. And today I'm here to talk about my experience in continuing progress and responding to some changing dynamics taking place within collections development at my library and explaining really how we were able to navigate some of the tribulations and trials of sorts that we went through. And through this presentation, I hope that I'm able to share some insightful aspects of my work and what I would recommend to others who are trying to continue large-scale projects and meeting unexpected changes within your library environment. So to set the scene here today, in the spring of 2025, which is when really this project I will discuss began, I was still very new at St. Mary's College, was just finishing up my first full year at the institution, and also in general pretty new to academic libraries and just what it means to be in charge of managing a collection and being a supervisor in that role. And during this time, the library was finishing a large-scale weeding project that had been ongoing for quite a while and was really reshaping some of the thoughts and considerations we had about doing an inventory. And along with this, the consortium that we're a part of had begun the process of beginning a request for proposal in moving library systems and migrating, as we all know it, in the tech services world. And we knew that this would be taking place in about 1 year, so this spring of 2026. And during my initial time at St. Mary's College, I had come to realize in talking with my coworkers that the last time that a inventory had really been done at St. Mary's was in 2002 for our collection. And along with this, another complicating sort of factor was that we knew that there was a chance for building construction to come along as well, which would significantly impact some of our abilities to do a collection project like an inventory of our library collection. And so all of these factors really got me starting to think about, well, maybe this would be something good that we could do to really benefit the library, but also renew some of the practices that we had and innovate in trying to make the library better and also acknowledging some of the changes that were forthcoming through our library system and through some of the other school-based changes that we were affecting. And so I just felt that as the principal cataloger at St. Mary's that we needed to do more to get our collection ready for a migration coming soon, which really led me to feel that we needed to do an inventory ASAP. And so sort of starting to plan the project, one of the very simple things was just thinking about some of the some of the new technology that we would need, such as wireless barcode scanners, which we didn't have prior to the start of this project, and additional computers and other sorts of devices that would be significant for the project that we wanted to do. And in part of this was also creating a whole new student worker position that was more focused on collections-based work instead of just being about working the front desk, which had really just been the traditional method and way that students had worked at the library and really interacted with us. And so continuing to think about that change and to be innovative, we felt that the inventory was a great opportunity to try something new with student workers and have them work in a way that we previously hadn't done before. And also in trying to build this out just organizationally, it was a challenge being that we're a pretty small library of only about 8 staff or so. So trying to think through some of the challenges that would be associated with it was significant in planning for it, but also being realistic in what we could do. And so fortunately, given the timeline that we had, we knew we had some flexibility to sort of build the plane as we flew it in a sense, and felt comfortable just kind of jumping into it head first in a way. And one thing that was a very significant aspect to the project that we did and how we went about trying to be innovative was PALNI, which is the Private Academic Library Network of Indiana, which is the main consortium that we're a part of. And they really were critical in not only helping us functionally do an inventory, but also just thinking through ways that we could have students work with us in this project and be empowered, and also in turn sort of continue to be innovative in the practices that we were doing in trying to just make it a new day, in the sense that I was new and it felt like there was an opportunity for a really clean break coming. And so part of that was also that inspired us to do this project was that one of our consortial members posted their inventory instructions to the PALNI intranet of sorts. And so while that was a very straightforward instruction sheet, us here at the library felt that we had an opportunity to try to make something different and new and just explore what worked best for our environment and what we could see as being an innovative practice, and also just making the project more enjoyable in general. So thankfully Wabash College did share this with us, and it was a very straightforward instruction sheet, but we wanted to embrace our creativity, and this took the form of a zine. And so my coworker Alexander, who also assists in technical services activities, was the one who really put forth the idea about making the inventory instruction sheet into a zine, as zines are a passion of his, and he's done a lot in his own time to work with zines and make it. And he already had the framework for creating the zine, and he felt that this was a great opportunity to try to connect with the students in a way and just be a bit more innovative and creative with something that is often not very exciting or fun to do, or really just trying to enhance how this was done. And so he took the time to copy the instructions from the Wabash manual and then used his graphic design skills to create the zine as seen here. Some of the screenshots that he added from the original instructions. And this proved to be pretty helpful in the process, and was great for when we were inventorying to be able to hand out physical copies of this manual, and also add to the spirit of zines and really what is available for zines in libraries today, and trying something new on the technical services side as well. And so another important aspect of this for ourselves was really centralizing some of the information and working to ensure that everyone was really on the same page in this project, as we felt that it was often, given the limited amount of staff and we don't often are in the building at the same time, we wanted to ensure that progress was done in the way that we were hoping it would be, and that we had a point of where everyone involved could gather together and continue to participate in this project. And so this was done in the form of an inventory staging station. And while it looks a bit messy here at the end, because this was as we were wrapping up, this was the place where we had all of the scanners and laptops and chargers and documents that were needed for ensuring that everyone understood how the work was to be done, but also that the if any changes were made, that we could effectively communicate with them and see what work they were doing, as this was right in our general workspace for the technical services at my library. And so this was helpful in the sense that also that it really gave us a chance to ensure that the practices in terms of ensuring that well-being were maintained, as well as we also had like snacks and other stuff for the students there who were inventorying, so that they were invested in the project as well. So one of the other significant sort of innovations, I guess, that you would say that came out of this project was we made a set of maps. Well, my coworker Alexander really was the one who initiated the true creation of the maps within Microsoft Excel itself. And this was how we just organizationally planned out how we were going to structure the actual process of inventorying. And as you see here, these are 3 different maps for each floor of our library. And even though we could have gone digital, I think we all yearn for analog in some way. And this was an opportunity for us to have these physical maps and to work with the students and to see where their issues were. And we could point out on specific spots and ensure through the dating also that we clearly understood who was doing what and when, and we could go back and reference it through our ILS as well if needed. And so this was something that I would say was a significant innovation of sorts for ourselves here at St. Mary's in our library, and also continuing to build on this sort of, while this would be built for the inventory, we also envisioned that in the future, these are the sort of resources that we will want to have on hand for future collections projects or whatever work is to be done in our library. So this was part of the future changes in the sense that we had these initial goals with the inventory, but also we wanted to continue to work to try to build a future that builds, in a sense, off of this inventory and what myself and my coworker had been doing. As we were both pretty new, but we also had this opportunity to try to change up just in general how these practices have been done and how one conducts themselves working with the collection and working with the students and getting that buy-in and communicating the process in general. And so just to go a bit more, to give you a bit more detail with the maps here, you can see the dating of each individual bay in our library collection and when that set of bays was scanned. And so over time, it was also helpful for when there were some issues with, be it our system or someone missed a bay or whatnot, we could easily go in and scribble it out. But I will say that in hindsight, it would have been better to use pencil all the time instead of pen like we did occasionally. But it was very great for when we were talking with reference librarians or other staff who aren't as involved in the project, that we could clearly show them, here's all the progress that we've made, here's the timeline that we've done it on, and this is what the benefit of sorts will be for it. So that was another sort of working document that also continued to have benefits for the future in a sense. And so, what I describe as our A team of inventorying, and these were the group of people that were involved in doing the inventory at our library. And it was sort of split up into different groups over time, given the schedule of the academic year and when students were available to work, and some other phenomena that came up that I'll get into later. But in summary, there were always about 3 to 5 students throughout the school year who were working as collections-based student workers in the library. At first, it was just 3 students, but then we realized the scope of the project was growing in size, and also that our needs from a labor perspective were growing. So we were able to get 2 more students in addition. So we had 5 who would work on inventory-related practices throughout the school year, and there were 4 true library staff involved in the inventory process as well. Myself, my coworker Alexander, and then 2 other individuals related to circulation and ILL who also assisted in supervising students at times and also did some of the scanning. And this was good as we as the staff took on some of the more problematic areas of the collection in a sense, such as the special collections areas and oversize and music scores, where we knew that there would be more problems in a sense that students could get tripped up on. And for efficiency purposes and trying to ensure that this project reached completion in the time that we did, we took care of those areas. And this was also good as well because I inventoried the music scores myself. It was about 4,000 of them, I think. And during this time, the way that they were physically structured on the shelves was not great. So I was able to add in additional holders and do that row by row, bay by bay. And this was not something that I initially envisioned doing, but through this process, we were able to improvise and adapt to include these sort of complementary aspects to this larger project that furthered the innovation, or well, changes, I guess, really in the renewal that we were trying to have forthcome through this project. And so also a part of that was rewrapping and having students be involved in the physical processing of items. And they were, during this time, also helping to label new items that we got, but we also discovered that there were many books in our collection that were older that needed care to them physically, be it with the mylar covers falling off, or old labels, or needing new call number labels, whatever it would be. So the students, in a way, it was kind of like Burger King, as the logo showed there. They kind of had it their way in terms of what work they wanted to do. Did they want to do physical processing of new items? Did they want to scan books? We tried to provide them with options so that they were always doing work that fitted their interest and skills and what they just wanted to do that day, as sometimes they didn't really feel like talking to someone, and they could go scan or do physical processing and just listen to a book. And this was part of the mindfulness aspect to the project that we really tried to have throughout, and I will discuss further, but we really wanted to make sure the students, it was not just scan the books, that's it, no further discussion or relationship. We really were trying to have a true person-to-person relationship, and I guess that was really stemming out of myself and Alexander not necessarily having those same experiences as students, and just trying to ensure that we put that good example forward for the students. And so to sum up, also, we did have we had an iPad with the Digby app, which is for WMS, OCLC, their ILS, and it worked okay, but honestly, it was much more efficient to just use cards with a laptop and a scanner, and to just go up there and hammer away at it when you could. And so, sort of building on the mindfulness example, we really tried to, as the leaders and the supervisors in this project, to have a human-first perspective throughout the project, and to not get caught up in ensuring that our timelines were met in their initial plan that we had set forth, and really trying to be leaders and not bosses. And I think that, again, this just goes back to recognizing the dynamics that exist for college students today. And St. Mary's is a women's college, so being cognizant of these factors and how we wanted the students to feel not that they were just sort of contractors or whatever who just came in, but that they really were a part of the library family, in a sense, or our community of workers here. And so that was important. And I guess the best way I simply put it was grace and space, and realizing that these students are very new to really working in general, but especially working in a library. So being sure that we took the time to really explain the process and to consider what their needs would be, and like what were some of the aspects of this project that we might have thought were pretty straightforward, but otherwise, perhaps as a student, would not necessarily. And then also just really just being honest with them about what my own experiences were, in that I am very new to supervision in general, and especially student supervision, and it was a challenge on my own as well, to ensure that I was doing what I needed to do as a student supervisor to meet their needs and what that experience was like. So in terms of change, in a sense, I changed as a leader throughout the course of the project, and just learned about what my strengths and weaknesses are in being a leader. And also we did our own leading by example, as the image it shows there. That actually came from my coworker Alexander, who led by example by showing how you should not load a cart from one side to another and instead go from each level up. So we were always clear with them when we were not, when we made mistakes, as we certainly were not perfect in this process all around. And so, sort of continuing on that theme, we one of the things that I felt that previously, through discussion with some fellow librarians at my institution and also just in general in the library world, was that sometimes, you know, libraries are very important to us, but for the students who are working here, it's just a small part of generally their life at a college. And that was something that we were very clear with them in recognizing and acknowledging, and in saying that while we do expect you to work at the library, we also understand that there's other things going on in your life that may prevent you from coming in to the library to work on the inventory at a given time, be it for class or whatever the reason may be. But we just expressed that the importance of communication throughout the process, and building clear expectations beyond just doing work when at the library, but how that sort of experience goes overall. And I think that was something that really just trying to help them also just get used to working in an environment like a library and at an academic institution. And in terms of that sort of renewal and innovation and ensuring that we were being mindful and also building a long-term future, we purposely spent as much time as we could with this in ensuring that we invested, that by investing in their future, we were investing in the library's future, and ensuring that we got the best results from this project that we could. And in turn, we were helping them to build experiences that were valuable outside of the library and could help them leverage that into something else. And so part of that for me was that as time moved on, I was less and less involved with the project itself. And this was really mainly due to the migration becoming all-consuming for myself, and I just had very pressing matters with that I could not provide to be scanning books or to be as directly involved. And so for myself, that's been I guess an important change, is that I've been becoming more comfortable with being hands-off on this work and just realizing that they're just gonna do, that they'll do the right thing and do some scanning, and that's okay. And I just don't have to be focusing on it. And as a small library, this is not something that I always get the space or grace to do, but in this chance, I was able to make it happen. And so that's been something nice to see, that over time, even though I didn't scan some books myself for a couple of months, all of a sudden it was like, wow, we're actually getting pretty close to the end of this project. And so sort of continuing on how we triaged issues in the inventory process, was that we wanted to make sure that the students were educated and informed. And this really was just, once we sort of got the workflow going in the fall, we were able to just simply provide some direction about, hey, I need you to scan today, or I need you to process books today. And that was really all that needed to be done, or to shift from one to the other. And so through that, we were able to keep the different parts of this larger process in movement without getting things too out of alignment in terms of we haven't been doing enough inventory, or we're letting books stack up that need to be processed. And so a good example of how the students were able to sort of innovate was with what we described as the problem items cart from the inventory process, where if they scanned a book, they saw the information in the ILS and what message was displayed, and then they were then handing it off to a cart near my office so that I could then investigate further and determine what the appropriate action was through this process. And so it was very tag team based, sort of like tag team professional wrestling in a sense, where they started working on something and then they'd hand it off to the next person who would continue working on until we got to that ultimate point of success. And I think that was really significant in not only advancing how our work was done and innovating in our workflows and practices, but also ensuring that the physical spaces were being renewed in a sense as well. And so, sort of to navigate on some of the tribulations of sorts that afflicted us during this process that added complications, but in a way furthered the innovation and renewal that occurred as a result of this process, was that during the summer of when this started, there were a few unexpected losses in staffing due to some outstanding reasons. And as a result of this, some of our manpower capacities lowered over time, but also shifted the ways that we conducted other workflows and technical services and how those interacted with this larger project we were trying to do. And so this put a crunch on us for some time because we had to focus back onto these core responsibilities and add new responsibilities for myself and for my coworkers in ensuring that this work got done over time. But also it gave us a chance to step back and think about some of the other problems that we had and how could we address them through this larger project that we were doing. And also, one thing that I didn't foresee at the beginning, but if you're going to attempt this project as well, is to build in additional time for when the student workers are not present. And for ourselves, that was sort of in between the, over winter break and some of these during spring and summer semester and the gap in between. And so there were times where perhaps I wish we could have had additional staff to do some of this work, but given the structure of the academic calendar, they were just simply not there. So we innovated around that when needed. And also there was a chance where we were gonna house a special collection from an archive that was being moved into the St. Mary's area. And so we had to clear all these shelves, which is sort of where they were in the picture seen there. But ultimately this didn't come through, so they were sort of like, thanks for doing the work, but no thanks on that space. But in sort of continuing to look on the bright side of things and seeing how we can continue to renew because of the weeding that we previously did, in addition to some spot weeding and the removal of a few items and what shifting occurred during the inventory process, we're going to do larger scale shifting from our third floor down to the second floor, which is seen here. And so by moving some of these books out of the way already, this helped to speed up the process for future shifting in a way that we didn't initially plan for. But in doing this process and doing this project at the same time that these renewals and changes through the technical services operations at our library, I think it was good, really forced us to continue to think about, well, how can we best change the workflows and not think about it in a more temporary manner, but really be innovative to the future and consider how we want this to occur with a new system, with a collection that feels more accurate in a way, and having these physical spaces being renewed and just changing up some of the longer standing practices to be more forward thinking than reactive in a sense. And so an important part of that I felt was just communication in general with a project. And I'm sure we have all been in projects where the communication or planning has not always been the most forthcoming. But I felt that through the maps and through our regular meetings as librarians, that I was able to effectively demonstrate not only the progress being made, but why we were doing this and how this can benefit other librarians who may have not been thinking about it in the same manner that I had. And also having true statistics like the number of books scanned and what the students were doing and what they were finding was insightful for them to consider how do we improve the collections in these spaces that are being inventoried over time. And so sort of to discuss some of the positive outcomes of this inventory beyond largely accounting for the items themselves was that I felt much better when we came to migrating about the state of our catalog and the metadata in general and what truly was or was not in our library through this work. And it really was helpful in finding all sorts of stuff like items we thought were missing or incorrect barcodes, out of date materials, times when we had far more issues of a resource than we really needed, and all of these gov docs that I was able to get rid of through this process as we all quickly realized that we did not need to keep this. We're not a repository library by any means. So instead of inventorying these items we were going to get rid of, we just got rid of them all. So that was a really great opportunity to take care of some gov docs and some other sort of ephemera that came from institutes. And also during this process, we were able to fuse along with our pre-migration prep into closing a branch and also working to sort of bridge some issues that had been outstanding with our collection. And so, sort of to give more statistical insight into what our results were, there were about 153,000 items scanned out of a total collection of about 157,000 items, I think, or so. So I'm pretty satisfied with what the ultimate result was in terms of accounting for each item in our library outside of like the rare book room, which has its own issues. And also ensuring that as an organization, we continued the renewal, which I think is broadly what I'm probably most satisfied about in a way was how it got us thinking, especially with student workers, how we could not only incorporate student work in ways we haven't done before, but also to really further build out the specification in what is being done and why it's being done, in a sense. And it also, there were times for fun things like finding this book that was upside down and started in the back. If I didn't do an inventory, I wasn't ever going to find something like this. So when I was reading about what the Connecticut conference here is about in terms of having this aspect of mindfulness and renewal and innovation and change, and that it just really struck me that even though I didn't fully intentionally go into the project with all of these in mind, it's clear that we did have mindfulness at the center of the project and also worked to be innovative in some challenging times when people that we thought would be available to help were not, or that some issues that we didn't expect to account for arose. And now, even having just finished it a couple months ago, in hindsight, it's good that we did do it because, I'll go back to that, because we've now since migrating continued to be involved in things with that. And also now on the building front, we're doing, our floors are being recarpeted. So floors 2 through 4 are very inaccessible for doing activities like inventorying now. So the window was there and we took it, and I'm glad that we went ahead and did so. And if these are some broader considerations that I have that I would put out there for others to think about, and feel free to add if you would like, about not only about inventory, but just in terms of renewal and innovating in a library, and just thinking about what could you have student workers do, especially at a smaller library where maybe they have just been working the desk or helping with ILO. What other sort of activities could you have your students assist in or try to do or make some sort of contribution that not only helps the library but helps themselves and that they feel proud of and want to bring others to the library with, in a sense. And also from a more logistical perspective, these are some of the other, thinking about stakeholders in the amount of not only financial resources, but in terms of labor resources and time, in a sense, that you have available soon, and also other staffing considerations like that. And that was something that I viewed as being significant for sure. And so the next sort of step for ourselves here at St. Mary's is to begin transitioning some of the collections student workers away from project dependent work. As we realize, there's not always going to be books to weed or an inventory to do. And while physical processing is consistent to a degree, that's not enough work for 5 student workers. So this is something that we're considering, looking at how do we not only ensure that they're still around and if they want to be at the library, but build on what they've done so far. And these were just some of the ideas that student workers that they themselves expressed about hosting student-centered events and doing arts and crafts and being more responsible for displays in the library. And while these might not be the most revolutionary things ever, it is big steps for us here at St. Mary's, as these are not the sort of activities that students have been involved in the past. And I mean, there's things like shelf reading that haven't been as done as much recently either, but I think would be beneficial for ourselves that the students could assist on. And so to build on this a bit more, these are the concrete plans that we have from the collections side of the Cushwell-Layton Library, which is to really solidify the division of student positions between circulation front desk and collections specific positions, and ensuring that we are able to express those differences to potential student workers and how those responsibilities are being set forth in ensuring an equitable workload amongst the students, and just beginning to try some of these different projects that the students have expressed interest in and seeing sort of how this goes from there. And I really do emphasize this idea of resume building experiences. As a college student myself, I wasn't always thinking about work in that sort of perspective, but they are, or we're working to ensure that the students are able to have resume, to have experiences that they could then put on their resume when they get close to the end of their time in college, and really ensuring sustainability of this position and ensuring that it's not just a sort of flash in the pan, but we really do want to have this set of cohort of sense of student workers who can be a bit more technical and focused in assisting us with these collections projects and trying to make the library feel like they're really, a part of it and having it for the other students to use as well. And to further show what the library currently looks like, that's what most of floors 2 through 4 look like here. And thank you all. That is all I have today. And if you are interested in any of the materials I presented on today, feel free to reach out and I can provide you what I can and just discuss doing an inventory or whatever else. So thank you.
Thank you so much, David. This was great. I feel like I can call on you if I have any, migration and inventory and shifting questions and just managing of the student workers. And there's just so much involved, and you were just kind of a part of every part of that, and that was great.
Indeed.
I'm gonna stop the recording and give folks a chance to ask
Okay.
questions if you have any.